everybody, and welcome once again to the Tattoo Sisterhood Revolution virtual interview series. I'm your host, Shelly Dax, and our guest speaker today is tattoo artist Ollie Nash. But before we start our talk with Ollie, for those who are new on the Telesummit today, in this free event, I'm providing a safe space for people of diversity to discuss their experiences. We hope to share ways around common obstacles, how to get support and grow as a tattooer in this creative and sometimes strange industry. I, along with this unique panel of artists, hope to give encouragement to newcomers and beginners on their tattoo journey. Now, let me tell you about our guest. Ollie Nash has been around tattooing from a very young, we'll edit that out. Ollie Nash has been around tattooing from a very young age, but, I still didn't say it quite right. Hold on. Ollie Nash has been around tattooing from a very young age, but didn't pursue it as a career until their 30s. They have spent the last 7 years fighting to find their place in a cis male-dominated industry. Now they are taking their journey to a whole new level as a business owner. Welcome, Ollie. Happy you are here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be a part of this.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks. And I, just for the listeners, Ollie actually and I live very close to each other in Oregon, and Ollie has actually taught some classes at my studio. So Ollie, you are also now, let's just talk about actually how you became interested in tattooing. You said you were around it since a young age.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm originally from Indiana, a little town called Mishawaka, and I was raised in a biker family. My grandfather was a biker, and everyone I was around were bikers, so there was kind of always tattooing somewhere. Everybody from the time I can remember always was covered in tattoos. You know, there was always events going on, somebody tattooing at somebody's house. Actually family motorcycle clubs, and you know, there'd be like one specific tattoo artist that just tattooed the club, and you know, they became like family. And actually, in my very weird circumstance, the first tattoo artist I ever met was the family tattoo artist for the biker club, and it was a woman.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, like unheard of for the times.
Sure. Yeah.
Her name was Julie, and I have a photo album of pictures of her tattooing back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Which was really interesting, but it blew my mind to see a woman doing something like that. And, you know, of course that definitely lit a spark in me. And so whenever we'd be at an event she would be at, I would just be sitting near her with my sketch pad and watching. You know, but and of course my grandfather encouraged that, but as I got older, it never occurred to me that it would be a thing that I could really do in my real life. You know,
Yeah.
You grow up, you start thinking about, I got to get a job and I got to do these things, and like pursuing art as an actual career wasn't something that, you know, I had planned on.
And did
art
and
was
your parents,
something I loved.
right? Did your parents like encourage you in art or not so much?
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
My mom raised me as a single parent, and and because art was like the one thing I loved, like if I got in trouble, the one thing she would never take away from me was like my crayons and my coloring books and my sketch pad. Yeah,
awesome.
It was like, you know, that's not how. She was like, that's not how you punish a kid. You know, you take away the fun thing, but if it's something they truly love, like you don't ever take that away from them.
Right.
So
Very cool.
I definitely had that, which was really nice. But you know, and then you know, as I got older, and I started, you know, kind of thinking about maybe I could do tattoos. They were becoming a little more of a realistic kind of thing. You know, in Indiana, even right now, there are like hardly any tattoo laws. You know, there's like some rules and guidelines more or less, but you know, growing up, I had a very different understanding of tattoos than I do now, because it was always just some guy got a machine somewhere and decided he was going to start tattooing in his house, and it was all house parties and, like I said, biker life, you know.
Yeah.
And so like the only way you could learn the tattoo was to get an apprenticeship for one of these guys that had no idea what they were doing most of the time, because they were just, you know, like, you know, tattooing out of the living rooms, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I barely trusted to be in a room with them for a tattoo, let alone, you know, let them control everything I, you know, said and did for a while.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty much, at that point it was out of the realm of possibility for me.
Huh.
And I was never thinking about like, oh, well, I'm going to be able to get an apprenticeship because A, they didn't want to apprentice a girl.
Uh-huh.
And two, like I said, most of the time they were scumbag guys. It was bikers I
Oh,
knew.
oh dear. Yeah. And that was like what,
It was like they were drunk
15-ish?
most of the day.
Yeah. So how long ago was that? Like 15-ish years ago or something?
Oh yeah, it'd probably been like the early '90s, probably,
Uh-huh.
or like mid '90s. I mean,
Okay. And then
definitely mid to late '90s, not early.
right,
I'm not that
okay.
old.
All right. And then you ended up moving to Oregon for what reason? Do you remember, or like what motivated you?
Oh yeah, I moved in 2009 with my ex. She had some family out here. Where I'm from was big into the motorhome business,
Uh-huh.
like the trailer factories. And she had family who worked for Monaco, and they moved out here for work. And so we all just kind of came out with.
Oh, okay. So it
And
wasn't like you went, "Oh, Oregon's so beautiful. I need to move there." No.
no, I didn't want to move. I was fine where I was. I had all my family and everything. Moving across country was the scariest thing, but my
Oh,
ex really
sure.
wanted to come, and I was like, all right, well, let's just go and see. And I brought my mom with me, and because she also had never been outside Indiana, more or less, so
Hmm.
to live. So we came out here together, and yeah, I absolutely fell in love with it,
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
Uh,
So at what
yeah.
point did you decide, I think tattooing could really be a thing for me?
Well, I only had a few tattoos being in Indiana. Like I said, I didn't go crazy with it, but mostly it was just house parties and the quality wasn't great. And being an
Hmm.
artist, I was a little bit of a snob about it. I kept it with real bad tattoos and being like, why do I keep doing this to myself? So when I got here to town, there was a tattoo shop right down the street from the first place I lived here in Springfield. And I walked in and I talked to the guys and, had a good time. And we started talking about art and stuff, and then they were like, "Oh, bring your sketchbook by one time," and so I did, and I was like, they were like, "Oh, wow!" Like they were apprentices, and they were like, "Oh, your stuff's great. You should totally do this." And again, I kind of passed it off. I didn't really realize what was involved in it. I was working at Walmart at the time,
Did
and
you actually have any formal art training, or are you all self-taught?
oh no, I'm all self-taught. I didn't
Awesome.
graduate high school, and in the Midwest, they don't really offer a ton of like art classes anyway.
Hmm. Yeah.
Actually, when I was in middle school, they had one art class, and me and these two other girls were so good that the art teacher convinced the school to make an advanced art class that was just for the three of us.
Oh, that's
We just,
awesome.
we just sat in the back of a regular art class and we worked on a stop motion animation cartoon the whole year.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Okay, so back to Oregon. You went to the
So
shop,
yeah,
you talked to some awesome apprentices.
yeah, and they were really great guys, and we hung out at the same bars, and I got to meeting some of them, and then eventually one of my friends I met was an apprentice at the school and was like, "Oh yeah, well this is how it works. Like, I'm an apprentice. I'm going to be graduating soon, but it's a school, so you pay for it." And he explained the whole thing, and I was like completely amazed. And so I just kind of well, first I became furniture at the shop. That's what I called myself.
Mm.
I spent like a year just running the counter for free for my friend because he worked overnights, and so it was just him in the shop.
Hmm.
And so once he graduated, I just ran the counter. I just did paperwork. I answered the phone. I helped him out, and then eventually, like the owners of the shop, like see me there a bunch, and I would come in during the day and draw with everybody, and
Hmm.
I just became like a staple of the shop. And then one day I got really sick and I lost my job at Walmart and was like, well, I guess I'm going to tattoo school.
So, but just to clarify, in Oregon, you don't have to do the free, for a year first before you go to tattoo school. Just to clarify
No, no,
that.
no. And
Yeah,
yeah,
you
no,
just chose
that's
to
the
do
thing
it.
is I was just hanging out because I enjoyed being around tattoo people. It
Hmm.
was kind of the people I grew up with, so I felt comfortable in that space. And not knowing anybody in Oregon, it was really nice way for me to meet people. And like I said, being from Indiana, I never thought tattooing would be a thing I could do. But here, having the schools where I knew if I paid that money and I put in that time, that I was going to learn the trade and I was going to be able to do this as a career.
Nice.
And I was heading into my 30s, so I was really looking to make a change in my life.
Hmm.
I wanted to set up my life out here. And yeah, like the school thing blew my mind. I was completely amazed at, at the fact that the state really was like, hey, let's do this as a trade. Cause you always hear the horror stories of, like, apprenticeships where you're getting, stencil on your face and they're, setting your shoes on fire and you're washing their cars and their houses. And,
Yeah.
again, being around bikers, I heard all of that stuff. It was, as far as I was concerned, being a tattoo apprentice was much like being a biker prospect.
Yeah.
You get spit on and you do the dirty stuff before you prove yourself to finally do it. But in most cases, you don't actually, not everybody makes it. It's just
Yeah.
like, so it's not like a trade, because in a trade, if you put in the work and you put in the time, you're gonna get there. You're gonna be able to do it. If you're learning to weld or, do mechanics, there's all these things that are trades, and you do sort of apprentice, journeyman or whatever to get to this job. But in tattooing, more often than not, you were never going to be able to tattoo. I
Mm-hmm.
know people who, I've talked to people recently who, went to apprentice at a tattoo shop. They made them run the counter for a while and then made them pierce, and they never even learned to
Yeah,
tattoo.
I've heard that too. That's
It's like you just do whatever they want. Yeah, you just do whatever they want you to do, and then that's it. So that was so scary to me, because I was trying to create a serious life for myself.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
was 3,000 miles away from home for the first time, and I was trying to do something to establish myself here. So when I seen that, I was like, oh, well, this is reality now. And, I had a good job at Walmart. I'd been working there for, 4 years, 5 years. And so I had, insurance and 401k and stock purchase and all the stuff, which I cashed out to pay for tattoo school,
Nice.
honestly.
Great. I love that.
But I mean,
Awesome.
working there 5 years, I had enough in my 401k to cash it out and, pay off my
Right.
school. So, I mean, I still had a pretty good amount of money.
So what
Although I did,
oh, go ahead.
oh, good.
So I was just going to say that well, let's see, when you first got into the tattoo school then, and you were essentially like apprenticing in a tattoo school, what was your,
Yes.
like, the biggest stumbling blocks or obstacles or whatever, and how did you overcome those?
Well, paying for it was definitely a hard part. Paying for school is always the hard part.
Right.
The schools, they run the gambit of prices around here. It all depends. And whereas I did get credited a little bit for my time that I'd spent, working for them, I did actually have to take a break and get a job to help pay for some of the school.
Hmm.
Um, but honestly, I was in a unique situation with the school I went to. I came in at a transitionary period
Hmm.
where there had been a person running the school and a teacher, and they had just left the scenario.
Hmm.
So, like, so the owner had to kind of take on that instructor role, which he hadn't really played. I mean, obviously he was the instructor the whole time, but he hadn't really solidly played that role in a while, you
Hmm.
know so he was trying to figure out how to even do anything. Like, most of my apprenticeship, I spent just, getting there early in the morning, answering the phones, breaking down stations, mopping the floors, doing all
Yeah.
this stuff. And it wasn't really a lot of, so I was trying to figure out how to, apply the little I knew self-taught of drawing and stuff into tattooing. And there wasn't the instruction for that.
Oh, uh-huh.
It was mostly the pay your dues portion, which, like I said, raised by bikers, I was all there for.
Oh,
I was
right.
like,
Isn't
yeah,
that
you want to,
interesting? You went into it thinking, well,
yeah,
that is how it works. It's not going to
that's
be
how
any
it
other
works.
way.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, you want me to scrub the bathroom floor with a toothbrush and learn how to field strip a rifle? Yeah, this seems like how you learn to tattoo. So
Wow.
I didn't question it at all. But, I seen people around me not really getting it, and getting in trouble, and I got in trouble a lot, for just, I'm kind of mouthy and speak my own mind quite often. You know
Mhm.
something about that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think you do a lot of that yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but yeah, it was a weird transition. And then, my instructor, for the first half of my apprenticeship was drinking, and the second half was quitting drinking. So it was
Oh
a very
gosh.
volatile time for everybody.
Uh-huh.
I'm turning 30, he's trying to figure out how to do a school. And so it was like one day he'd come in and drop some absolute gems on us and, show us how to do, specific tattoo, things. He teach us how to use a machine, do these different things. And then the next day, you wouldn't see him, at all. He wouldn't even come into the shop or something,
Yeah.
So it was a really weird time. And it ended up being a really weird circumstance for me because I had to figure out a lot of things on my own then.
Yeah.
Luckily, there was a ton of great artists in the shop who had also gone through the school and were super willing to just answer questions. So I would stay like late nights. There's one of the artists, the guys who came in as an apprentice while I was working a counter and graduated and stayed as an artist and he actually owns his own shop now. He's a very successful guy and a good friend. And I would stay late with him and watch him tattoo and ask him questions. And weirdly enough, he was friends with, I think, one of your other guest speakers, Josh South. And so Josh would come in and I'd pick his brain too and kind of listen to the two of them talk. And so I had to teach myself a lot of things.
Yeah.
I had to kind of go outside of the school. As far as I know now and from working there, I've seen that the school is much more structured now. Like, obviously, he got it together. He puts, he definitely, places a lot of students.
Sure.
He's got that part together now, and there's actual, like, you learn how to draw and you learn how to tattoo and you learn how to machines work.
Well,
Which is I'm happy for that, for the students that have gone through after me, but there's a little bit of that, like, well, where the hell was that at when I was learning?
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, then, so did that just like inspire you to be, you like to teach, I know that, and you like to share your information with other people. So you're not one of those, keep your tattoo secrets close to your chest and never share them. You're very, very open.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that came from me having to teach myself. I seen these new people coming in and I wanted it to be like the artists I seen around me, sharing information and doing these things. And so, I did that. I definitely took that role. At the shop, I became like, the shop mascot. I was like, as soon as somebody came in the door, I was the first person saying hi. There was a couple of apprentices that I'm actually still friends with.
Nice.
Someone who doesn't even tattoo anymore. Actually, she's a nurse in New York right now.
Wow.
Yeah, but she always says like she wasn't sure about tattoo school, and then the second she walked in and I walked up to her and said hi and introduced myself and explained who I was in the shop and what was going on, she said that moment is what made her decide. Was just me being there, being great, and acknowledging her, because she'd been into so many tattoo shops where you don't even get acknowledged.
Yeah, people don't even look up.
Yeah, you walk in and the two cool for you tattoo guys are like won't even look up from what they're doing. They're just like, what do you want? And it sucks because those are the guys that generally those are the guys that do good tattoos and you wish you could learn something from.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
I never wanted to be like that. I wanted to be more like the artists around me, and so that's when I started kind of teaching, and I taught they let me teach some classes to the students every once in a while, which is how I had classes ready for you and I started helping you out.
Yes, yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, so can you share what you've noticed about women and minorities and queer folks getting into the tattoo industry, and what experiences you've had around that?
Honestly, that's another thing that I can't stress enough is so good about the schools, is the option of having that, knowing that you can go into a tattoo school and learn what you want to tattoo, to do, the career you want to do, and know that you're going to be able to do it. Apprenticeships, there's, are mostly led by biases. It's the person who's doing the apprenticeship is only going to teach the people they want to teach, and more often than not, they want to teach the same scumbag guys that they are. Not
Whoa.
Saying that they're all scumbag guys,
but
of
course,
like
I know
used to be that used to be the tattoo shop thing. Is a tattoo artist was some dude with a beard or a goatee and a backwards camo baseball cap and tattoos all over and Converse sneakers, smoking a cigarette. Like there was a stereotype, and it was these guys that listened to like heavy metal and they had to be hardcore. You walked into a tattoo shop and you were kind of scared that anything could happen at any point. Then that's the trope of tattoo shops for the most part. And it sucks because that's not how it started originally, but it really got there fast. And it
Isn't
was
that
just,
strange? I've had a few people
yeah,
talk about how, the indigenous peoples that started tattooing so many, years and years ago, it wasn't like
yeah,
this. This was a weird American, I don't know, maybe and not just American. It's everywhere. But it's
yeah,
a strange thing that happened and now we're trying to take it back again.
absolutely.
Yeah, right? That's
And even when
interesting.
it first started in America, and we had the tattoo guys in the Bowery who were doing tattoos on sailors and crazy people, because that's what they were looked at. They were like, oh, these people aren't right because they've got tattoos. you
Right.
know uh even those artists, yeah, they smoked their cigarettes and they were a little rough because they were dealing with sailors and stuff, but they tried to be professional, and they had their business cards, and they took these nice photographs and tried to, like, even they weren't like the scumbag guys. I don't know when that happened.
When did that
I don't know
happen?
when that
I
happened,
just wonder where it
but
went
it
down.
did.
Where
It
did
did, because yeah, you had like these, you had your professional guys. They were, like I said, they were rough. You look at Sailor Jerry and
Mhm.
people like that. You see these pictures of these old guys with their like white t-shirts and their cigarettes rolled up in the sleeve, but they weren't like, I don't know, the ones I grew up with, I guess.
Different, yeah.
Yeah, and I
So
keep
so
I keep
then
saying scumbag guys because, like, that's the way I was introduced to them. With
sure.
bikers, like that's the word they use. My grandpa used to call them that, so like that's what I use. And
Oh, how
obviously, not
funny.
everybody was like that because I was raised with a female tattoo artist as well. But
Mhm. You got
you
to see
know,
it, yeah.
more often than not, it was that, and so it was untrustworthy. It was shady. Everybody saw it as kind of a back alley business. It wasn't taken seriously as a profession for sure.
Right,
And
yeah.
so, like I said, it goes back to the bias. The good old boys who were tattooing. I'll stop saying scumbag guys. uh,
Okay.
the good old boys that were tattooing wanted more good old boys that they could hang out with and bond with. So a queer person or a woman wasn't going to be who they were going to apprentice
Yep.
unless you were an amazing artist and you really fought hard for it. You weren't getting in.
Mhm, yeah, and
I
I've talked
talked
to a
to a
lot
lot
of
of
people.
female.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say
Please
I've
do.
talked to a lot of, yeah, artists who've gone the route of training themselves just because, like
Yep.
you said, kind of just because they couldn't find an apprenticeship. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And some of them are incredibly amazing tattooers now, of course.
Oh, 100%, 100%, and a lot of the women I've talked to, because I do like to talk to women in tattooing to find out, different things, and, how their experiences were, and more often than not, they're like, "Oh, I was self-taught." Yeah.
Yeah.
So the schools has definitely really stepped that up. In this area, I'm at all constantly have seen how many, like, yeah, women and people of color and queer people who are in the industry now, and it's not just here; it's everywhere. But places like this really, I think what I would guess that there are more female tattoo artists in Oregon than anywhere else in the
I
world.
wonder, you wouldn't that be
Because I feel
interesting to
like
find
every
that
shop
out?
I walk into, every feel like every shop I walk into is women because they're like, "Oh, I can get a license here. I can do this here." And
Right.
and that's great, and I really really like that. And as for me being, I'm non-binary and queer, I'm I find myself in weird areas as far as tattooing goes
Mhm.
because of those good old boys, let's say.
Yeah.
Working in shops with them, they don't really know where to put me, because more
Mhm.
often than not, they're, the guy walks in, they're gonna be like, "Oh, hey, buddy, blah 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 blah," and a chick walks in, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, hey," and they're gonna talk to her a certain way, but I don't fit either one of those categories, so they're like, "Ugh," and generally they just won't even talk to me.
Right, what do we do with you?
Yeah, they
So
don't
is
they don't
that
know where to, they need a category to put me in,
yeah,
and
right.
and I can talk guy with the best of them, so usually I can make them feel a little more comfortable, but I think I'm charming and can charm anybody. That's just
You
because
are
I'm
very
really
charming, that is true. So is this partly why
big
you
fan of me.
decided what'd you say?
I said I'm a big fan of me.
Well, that's good. Well, we all need some stickers from you, I think, too.
Yeah, I
With
just
your
got some
face
brand
on
new ones
them.
with my face on it.
Right. So is that why you decided to start, or like be in your own shop? You did start your own shop and it was all women, I think, at first or something, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
So
Yeah.
the first shop I started was yeah, it was all women, and but it was a co-op. Um where we were all kind of just splitting everything 3 ways, kind of like roommates. Like if
Uh-huh.
so none of us had to like take the take that first leap of like, oh, I'm starting a business and everything's serious and real now, you know.
Right.
And it was wonderful, you know, doing everything like a co-op like that was really nice. Um, you know, and being in an all-female shop like that, you know, which was very inclusive and supportive, was super great. And I'm so glad I did that. You know, I have no regrets in that at all. But personally, I was like, you know, okay, I think it's time that I need to be the boss, you know. You know, I was getting a little older, you know, I'm like, okay, I need to like, you know, really, you know, step it up because like, you know, I wanted to like be in an instance where I could hire somebody.
Hmm.
Whereas there, we did have other people come in and work, but I never felt like I could be like, you know, hey, I'm a shop owner. Let me kind of show you the ropes. And, you know, and actually, I have 2 of your students here that, you know, uh, I'm doing that with. And it's great because I still
Yeah.
get that kind of teaching experience because they're like, I don't know what to do. And you know, I can have them
Awesome.
come and sit and watch me and, you know, show them how to do stuff because, yeah, this is my shop. You know, whereas the other shop, like I said, it was a co-op, so it's like I didn't want to overstep anything from the other people
Hmm.
because we were kind of even at everything.
Yeah.
Plus, also, you know, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to retire someday. Maybe owning a shop is a good plan to start now.
Yeah. Well, what's
Maybe do
really
that
cool
before
is
I hit 40.
I don't know if everybody in the audience would understand. In Oregon, the tattoo schools are a basic foundational training so that you can get your license. So it's more like a
Yes.
pre-licensing program that we run. But then we always tell our artists too that when you graduate, you're still going to be considered an apprentice for probably a couple of years, a year or two at least. We
Yeah,
just don't
absolutely.
call it a formal apprenticeship. It's just you're new.
No, no, no.
You're new in the world. You're still learning. I think we all agree that it takes probably at least 3 to 4 years to get really, pretty darn good at what you're doing here.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
of course, a lot of people say 10,000 hours to master something. But I don't know
Right.
that that doesn't apply to everybody. If they have a lot of really strong art skills before they start too, that actually helps propel them forward.
Yeah. And you know, and most of what I teach, you know, here as, you know, with your half you're teaching the basics like, you know, what a needle looks like, how to put it in a machine,
Right.
how to put the needle in the skin. And then when I take them on here, you know, it's more like, okay, well, here's the, you know, the finesse of talking to a client. You know, here's how to answer things and word things properly. Here's how to
Yeah.
answer the phone. Here's how to take a message, you know, here's shop operations and how to do that stuff. And that's really that next level. And then also, you know, obviously the added benefit of them being able to watch different people tattoo.
Yeah.
And, you know, because we've got 5 artists in the shop right now,
I know. That's
and
so
none of
cool.
us have a similar style. Like we're all very different in the things that we do. And so like, you know, any person coming in can sit and watch that and really take things on and see things, you know. Even in this shop, we have 2 left-handed people here, which is a very different thing to watch
Unusual. Yeah.
left-handed people tattoo. So yes, there's a lot more experience that you can't get in a school that you do need to get in a real shop. And so that's what made me want to own my own shop is because I really wanted to be, you know, I wanted to be that place where people could go and not even just work here, like guest spot or just come in and say hi
Uh,
and talk. You know, I wanted to have a safe place that people could learn things. Because like I said, you know, when I started out, I didn't really have that. You know,
right.
I came in a weird moment.
What do you think's the most common reason for people failing or giving up, once they've started on this career?
um, People, customer service.
Yeah, that's probably true, huh?
I've seen a lot of people, you know, not be able to make it because they can't handle, you know, being bombarded with questions because this job never ends. It's not a 9 to 5. You can't go anywhere. I can't go on vacation. I can't go to the, you know, grocery store without talking to 3 people about tattoos.
Yeah,
And
and plus
you know,
nowadays with social media and email lists and all of those kind of things, you're doing so much more
oh
work
yeah,
when you're not even at the shop.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, I have so many places that people message me. I mean, I have emails from the clients. I have emails from the shop email. I have my Facebook, the shop Instagram, my Instagram. You know, I have like a million different places that people are, you know, getting a hold of me, and to keep track of all of it is insane. And actually, I have two Facebooks. So my regular Facebook, and then I have an artist page that I'd made at some point, and there's clients who will message me on that. So, I mean, that's 7 different places I'm getting
Yeah.
messages without even, and that's not even, counting phone calls and people walking through the door.
Oh my goodness. Well, how do you think that artists then new artists and beginners can stand out in this noisy world we're in?
Honestly, I ended up standing out accidentally. All I did was kept my head down, worked on what I was doing, and, was confident in myself, because you are the product you're selling. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of me, you know, I branded myself very well. And so it wasn't that hard for me to get my name out in the community because one person comes in to get the tattoo and, we're chit chatting and talking and, everybody jokes that my clients come in, clients and leave as friends.
Mm,
Um, because usually I'll spend like 20 minutes after a tattoo just talking about nerd things or showing them projects I'm working on,
yeah,
and it's that personal side. It's that, that personal side of it that really does a lot of good, because you could go into the industry and be amazing. You could be the most amazing artist straight out the bat, and and then you can spend your whole career doing one giant tattoo a day with headphones in and never speaking to your client. And we
right.
all know that guy, that happens. The chick that's got the giant headphones on is just so amazing she doesn't have to say a word to anybody. You see him at all the conventions.
Yes.
uh, and that's fine for them, but not everybody's that most talented artist that can just do that. So that customer service portion of it becomes serious sometimes.
Yeah. So
So
why
that's
do
the
you,
best way to do it. Just look
yeah,
at it like customer service, like you're selling yourself. So be friendly, be nice. Don't be afraid to show people what you're doing. Don't be afraid to, if somebody's like, "Oh, I really like your tattoo," be like, "Oh, I do tattoos, and here's where I do them." Like, don't be afraid to be like, "I'm awesome. Let me tell you about me."
yes.
You know, and honestly, I know a lot of people who do it and don't even believe it, but it gets you a long way. Just
That's
being
true.
confident
Right.
in yourself.
You
If
fake it
you're,
until you make it.
yeah, because there's so many artists that, even when I started out, like, I was very uncomfortable with people even saying they liked my art. I didn't know what to do with that,
Mhm,
I didn't know
mhm.
what to do with compliments. People were like, and I was like, "Man, it's all right," But you can't say that about a tattoo. If you're like, "Oh, you do tattoos?" And I'm like, "Man, I do okay tattoos." Nobody wants an okay tattoo. Nobody's gonna come to
Oh,
an
that's
okay
so
tattoo
true.
artist.
This is funny. It reminds me of Cassie Shamel, who was one of my students.
Oh, I love
And you worked,
Cassie.
yeah, she's so cool. But I remember when she would get done with the tattoo, she would just be like jump up in the middle of the shop and be like, "Oh my God, it looks amazing! It looks so great! I love it!" And then she'd kind of get everyone
Oh,
saying the same things. We're all like looking over, yeah, it is great, it's amazing. And of course, the clients would be like, "Oh, yay, it's amazing!" I love that
yeah,
about
she's
her.
a positive person. I loved working with her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I still talk to her all the time, and she's
yeah,
just super great. And
yeah.
yeah, that's that thing. She's got that thing where she can just do that.
And
But
make
I've seen, and
clients
I've even seen
experience.
amazing.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've even seen amazing artists come in that can do great things, but yeah, just lose it all when they have to talk to a human person.
Right. Oh my
and
gosh, you're
and
right.
I've seen them come and go. They're just too shy or whatever, and they're just like, "Oh, well, what do I say?" And it's like,
Well, the
start with
weird
hi,
thing
I
I
guess.
think that a lot of people don't understand when they're starting out is that, you can't just have the attitude like, I'm an artist and I don't want to sell, I don't want to do sales, I don't want to do anything, because honestly, like you said, you're selling yourself, your personality, your art, everything. And you need to promote yourself to be able to get out there and actually start making some money and be wildly
Yeah,
successful, right?
right. I know, and I'm still working on that myself. That's not, the easiest thing to do, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to like get yelled at quite a bit by my wife because she'll go through my phone and be like, "Oh, this is an amazing drawing," or "Oh, that's an amazing tattoo you did. Why haven't you posted that?" And I'm just like, "Because I'm the worst and I never post anything."
Okay, you're learning your lesson. You're going to do that now.
Yeah, I try. I go through I've actually been like 6 days without posting anything, and because I've just been tattooing a bunch, and so by the time I'm done tattooing, I'm just tired, and I
Yeah.
I don't want to do social media. It's like, ugh, that's the worst. But again, it's part of that thing. If I'm not selling myself, then I'm not getting out there.
Yeah,
So I
that's
need to
great.
do those things, but it's always the hardest thing to do, even for somebody like me who's super confident.
Yeah, well, so let me ask you, what like main thing or technique or something was something that propelled you forward? Like your tattoo skills got much better because you found out or knew or learned this thing.
Honestly, just figuring out what I wanted to do in tattooing. When I came in and that first time into the tattoo shop with my little sketchbook, I was doing like copying comic book stuff, and it was mostly in pencil and pen, and so it was like, graphic and black and gray. And so I
Hmm.
was like, oh, I'm gonna do, when I got into tattooing, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do black and gray, obviously, like that's where I'm at. Realism was never on my thought list, but but graphic stuff in black and
Hmm.
gray, and I loved that kind of look, that like gangster black and gray soft stuff. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved the way it looked, and I thought, oh well, that's what I'm going to do because it's very fits my art. But then I started looking at other forms of tattooing and learning how I was tattooing, and right away in my apprenticeship, we found out that I had a proficiency for like using a mag. Like
Yeah.
I can I could pack some color. I can use a mag all day long. My instructor actually, once he's seen that, had me do an entire tattoo with just a 13 mag, no
Hmm.
liner.
Hmm.
That was the only thing I could use. And I did a tarantula on one of the other students' legs, and it looked dope. And it was like, none of the other students could figure out how to, use a mag. And they're like, how did you even do that? And I was like, I don't know. So then I thought,
You're like, I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know. It's just what my hand does. And so then I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll just do black work and I'll just do
Yeah.
tribal stuff because, yeah, I ended up doing a bunch of tribal fill in my apprenticeship because I could just pack that black.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that became my thing. But then over time, I realized that I really liked color. I had never worked in color before, so I had no idea. And so I just started learning tips and tricks from other, artists showing me how to use Prismacolors and things like that. And then I was like, "Oh, man," so then I got really into cartoony stuff, which is kinda where I'm at now.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
was gonna
"Oh,
say, what style are you?
yeah.
I've seen a lot of your cartoony stuff, it's awesome. So what is that mostly what you're loving to do right now?
Oh, yeah, I love, like, bold line, bold color, like, cartoony, neo-traditional, like, new school, like, that's my area, that's where I'm at."
Mhm,
And, I still try to dabble in some black and gray and do it when I can, but it's not my strong suit.
mhm,
Also script isn't my strong suit.
mm.
That not everybody can do everything.
Yeah,
I can do them.
absolutely. That's
My
actually a
favorite
really
things
good
to
point,
do.
though, to, like, bring up for the audience too, is, like, a lot of people will say, when you go to work at a shop, what, how to, is there competition or whatever? But the truth is, mostly there's people are doing so many different styles, and that
Yeah,
there's room for everybody. And also, like you said, using a
yeah.
13 mag or whatever to do a spider, people some people love, and their hands work really well when they're using bold, or liners, big liners and stuff, but other people really
Yeah.
like the finesse of the tiny little delicate lines or whatever. But there's room for everybody. So it's not like you can just say this is how you do it, because
Oh,
all
yeah,
of those needles require a different hand speed, a different pressure, and all of that.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, and doing regular art, it doesn't always translate to tattoos. Because like I
Right.
said, I worked black and gray. I worked in black and gray. It was pencil and charcoal and pen, and then and then now all I do is color. Like I can't even, like
That's funny.
I,
Yeah.
and so I never in a million years would have thought that's where I would have ended up, but it was just from just figuring things out. I also
Yeah.
ended up doing cover-ups. That's majorly what I do.
Hmm.
Uh because I found that my like in experimenting, doing just everything. Because when you start out, you should just try everything.
Yeah.
Don't be like, oh, well, that's not really my style. Just try everything. If somebody comes in and they're like, I want this, if it's something simple, it's not so bad. And you can even say, like, oh, I've never done anything like that before, but I feel really confident that I can. Like, they'll understand and they'll either be like, oh, well, I don't want you to accidentally make a mistake. I don't want it. Or they'll be like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so, and so just trying to do everything, and I started doing some cover-ups when I was a student, and then it just became more and more and more, and now I have a whole separate, like, I have my portfolio and a whole separate portfolio just for cover-ups and fix-ups.
Oh, nice.
I've
That's a
done,
good
like,
idea.
3 of them this week.
This week alone. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
that's
not
great.
even a joke, yeah, like,
Yeah.
and it's not even just always cover-ups, sometimes it's fix-ups, but I found that I'm really good at being able to hide something you've already got, and
Nice.
I can hide it with color and I can hide it with black and gray. And I sit down, I have a whole process that I do, because cover ups are a very tricky thing.
Yes, they
They
sure
should be
are.
a category just on their own,
I think you're right.
but
Yes.
not everybody can do it.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
I get so many clients in that have heard that I cover ups, and they go to other shops and they're like, "Oh, can you cover this?" And they're like, "Yeah, how do you feel about black squares?"
right. A magic 8 ball. No, that's
Yeah, do you
funny.
like panthers?
Right. So, okay. So we're getting closer to the end of our time together today, but I wanted to say, why don't you tell me just like maybe 3 things that you think, is most important when someone is completely new and maybe they don't live in an area that has a school or whatever. They live in some place where they don't exactly know what to do. Give them a couple of pieces of advice for that.
Yeah. Always be drawing,
Mhm.
like 100%. And not everybody's going to be a fan of that. I have encountered many situations in my career so far that really genuinely shocked me to my core, where I would be working in a tattoo shop and have somebody be like, "Why are you just sitting around all day not doing anything?" And I'm surrounded by paper because I've just been drawing a design and tracing it and refining it and drawing it and tracing it and refining it. And they're like, "Well, you're just sitting there." And I'm like, "No, but I'm doing this though." Like, I'm drawing, like, and there's some people who just don't get it. And like, one person in particular, I had a problem with that. He was a realism artist, and so, like, he didn't have to sit and refine lines and draw stuff, because he'd just print like somebody's flower off of the internet, and just he could put the shading where the shading was supposed to go.
Right.
But he wasn't really drawing every day.
Hmm.
And my stuff, my flash, I had to constantly keep getting better, and constantly keep progressing. So draw every day.
Draw. Yes, that's good.
If it's
Oops, lost you there.
just a little something, make sure you're drawing, and then look at tattoos. So drawing every day, number one. Many styles of tattooing there are so many.
Hmm.
There's black and gray and color, but then there's also there's the gangster black and gray and realism black and gray and traditional and neo-traditional and, like I said, cartoony and graphic. And there's just all these different little nooks and niches and
Hmm.
so many corners of tattooing. And I follow people from all over the place. I have artists that I love in Germany and in Italy and France, and like then none of them are the same. Like, one of my favorite tattooers that I follow is from France, and his name is Noon,
Hmm.
Noon. And his stuff, he just draws it on with a pen, and it's crazy. And he does these patterns and these textures that are nothing even compared to what I do, but it's so inspiring, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
No, having social media and being able to see so many
yeah,
amazing people from around the world is super inspiring. And sometimes also like, will I ever get there? Can I, but
yeah, sometimes
yeah.
a little overwhelming for sure. But we live in a great age where you can just 3 clicks and see something from across the world that you never would have considered.
Yes. Yeah.
And so yeah, and so yeah, so number one, always be drawing. Number two, look at everything. And when you're looking at them, don't even look at the whole piece. Look at the lines. Imagine yourself drawing the lines or filling in the color. Put yourself in that tattoo, picturing what they're doing. And if it makes sense to you, start trying to draw and do in that technique. If it doesn't make sense to you, if you look at it and you can't figure out even where you'd start on that, maybe wait on that.
Yes. And that's
Try that one. Right?
okay.
Like, if you look at realism and you're like, how is there even shading in this? I don't even understand. Which is like me. I look at realism and I'm like, what magic school did you go to?
Right. You have a magic wand. Yes.
Exactly.
So,
But if I look at a traditional tattoo, I can look at all those lines and know how I
yeah.
would do those lines. And I can break it down in my head. And not everybody can do that either, but you'll get to figuring out what style you like. And maybe it's not always what you like to look at, but like to draw. Just try to draw everything. So I
Hmm.
guess number two is also draw everything. Number, two is draw,
Number
number one
3,
is
draw
all the
everything.
time. Number two is draw everything. And the third thing I'd say is like, you may not have a school around you, but there's always shops and people tattooing. Talk to them. What's it gonna hurt? What are they gonna say? Go away? Cool. You know nothing. You didn't have to pay for anything. You didn't make an enemy. You didn't make a friend. But
Yeah.
but every once in a while you'll find somebody like me that you walk into the shop and you're like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about tattooing, and I'll sit down with you and talk to you all day if I ain't got nothing
Yeah.
else to do. Sometimes you can't get me to shut up.
You just got to find someone like Ollie. Right?
Exactly. But we're out there. We're out there, and we're more
Yeah.
increasingly out there,
Yes, that's the good thing. More and more and more
Yeah.
people are embracing the idea of being more open-minded and inclusive, and
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we're in this age of the internet where everything's out there, and more people are wanting to share and share and share because that's how they're getting information. So that's how they want to give information.
So
Not
so
everything's
that's
secretive.
I love that. It's changing, and you're definitely a part of that as well. So my last question for you then is, if someone is already in a situation where they're in an apprenticeship and they are experiencing bullying or hazing or any of that stuff that you were describing earlier with the scumbag tattooers, what would you say to them?
I can only say scumbag tattooer because I've been a scumbag tattooer.
Okay.
I started off
So
that
you're
way.
forgiven.
Spent
Okay.
way too much time at the bar and said inappropriate things to people. But no, if you're in that situation, know that you don't have to be in that situation. There's always a better option. There's never an excuse for somebody to treat you poorly. And if there's something that you want to do and in your heart you want to do it, you know, don't don't go the bad route. I'm not saying like just start tattooing out of your house or anything,
Mhm.
but don't mess yourself up or somebody else up doing something dangerous, but you don't want to be put in a situation that's dangerous for you either. And mentally, you can take a lot of mental hits before you realize that you've taken them.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
once you do, get yourself out of the situation. No, you don't have to stay. You can
Good.
justify anything in this world, but don't ever justify hate, for sure. You know,
Oof, good. Can I quote you on that?
Absolutely.
That's great. So, Ollie, what are you most excited about for your future? What's coming up for you that you're excited that you're woo about to do? What?
Well, I mean, just this shop, we're still just working on it every day. I'm currently
Nice.
we had a little closet in the shop that I'm currently turning into a photo room and getting some lights set up and some backdrops. We just painted it so that we can start taking some nice photos. Even if we don't use it all the time, I like trying to have that for everybody. But just working on the shop, waiting on things to open up so we can do some more things.
Mm,
I'm really excited for things to open back up and me and you can do some classes here and show some people
yeah.
some stuff,
I
even
know.
if it's not a tattooing, if maybe it's just about art, but I love the idea of collabing and
Oh, me too.
being part of the community, that I'm in now. So
Right.
that's,
Collaboration is so wonderful. It's
absolutely.
key to
And I'm just excited to take on this shop owner thing and really, show people what I can do.
great. Cool. So we're wrapping up, and I know you have a little free gift for our listeners too. So just tell us about what that is.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of things in mind. I haven't nailed down which one I want to offer yet, but I am going to be putting up some flash that I've drawn up with the line work so that people,
Cool.
who are maybe just starting out, try a different style that maybe isn't their own.
I love
And
it.
yeah, feel free to use it and do whatever. So
So
I'll
it's a
have that up at
mystery
some
gift.
mystery gift.
I love that. Okay, cool. So for the audience members, the link to that will be next to Ollie's photo on the event page. So you can just click there to get to that. And Ollie, I really appreciate you talking with me today, as I know your schedule is super full, but I'm sure the listeners are grateful for your time as well.
I'm grateful to be a part of this and just to have some of this information out there for people who need it.
To our listeners, your next interview will be delivered to your inbox. And don't forget, you have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released to listen. I look forward to joining you in our next session. Until then, be feisty, stay kind, and get creative.